Hello, hello, and welcome to a full moon reading. I'm beyond excited right now. My sister has just arrived in South Africa for a visit, and even though she's not going to be with me for a little while yet, I'm just beyond excited that she has just jetted into the country. So, sorry for my little personal excitable ramble. Let's just think about this full moon in Aquarius. Let me share the chart. It has so many awesome aspect patterns that I just want to speak briefly into aspect patterns. Um, Remember that I set the chart up for where I am in South Africa, in Port Alfred to be precise. So that's why that's what it will say on the top here. It's the 9th of August. This full moon is the 9th of August. In South Africa, it will be happening at 9:54 a.m. If you want to figure out where that is for you, then just put it in your own time. And remember, I use AstroSeek usually in these readings. I'm also a big fan of AstroDienst or Astro.com, which is the same site. Those are the two I use primarily. For these, I'm not sure why I use AstroSeek here and AstroDienst in my readings generally, but it is what it is. Anyway, I just want to show you here how exciting this is with these aspect patterns. Can you see this big blue triangle here, which has this little uneven, can't remember what that's called, triangle here? That forms what's called a kite aspect pattern, and you can see why. We actually have two kites in this because we have same basic triangle, which is called a grand trine, and then we have another little top to it. So there's a kite on that side as well. We also have a mystic rectangle here where we have this big rectangle happening with two red lines crossing through the center. So some exciting aspect patterns. And basically aspect patterns are an aspect is when a planet speaks to another planet and what kind of a relationship they have. So for making this super, super simplistic for I'm pretty sure most of my viewers like me to keep this more simple. We have five Ptolemaic aspects that can be made with planets. Three of them are more challenging, and two of them are more flowing and harmonious. So the challenging ones would be conjunctions when planets are together in the same place or there and thereabout. There is a little range of degree of separation called an orb that they can be, which would still consider, they don't have to both be at 7 degrees. Like at a new moon, the sun and moon are at exactly 7 degrees, for example. But you might still call planets conjunct if one was at 10 and one was at 7. So anyway, we won't get into the orbs of it. But anyway, conjunction, planets together, oppositions, planets opposite one another, squares, planets 90 degrees from one another. Those are the more challenging ones, and they're usually depicted with red lines so that you know that's a bit more of a combative relationship. And then the blue lines are usually the more flowing, harmonious ones, and that would be the trine, 120 degrees, which will basically almost always bring you to the same element. So, for example, here we have a grand trine in air. We have Uranus in air making a trine to Mars in air. Mars in air is making a trine to, oh, you know what? I've got the speaky bubble things on and I can't figure out how to take them off and it's in my way. How do I do that? I might have to, let me see, sorry. Disable annotations. No. I, Sorry, I shouldn't be doing this while I'm busy recording, should I? Anyway, down here in Gemini is in Aquarius, sorry, is where we have Pluto, and so that is also in air. So we've got three planets, early degrees of air, forming these trines. Do you know what I'm going to do? Because I'm finding it so distracting. Mercury is retrograde, and it's just distracting me. So let me come. There we go. Hide captions. Okay. Now I'll reshare. Sorry about that. I don't think you can even see the captions, but they show up on my side and I find them it's a little bit of ADHD brain and Yeah, find it very distracting. Okay, so anyway, let's come back to talking about this full moon and why it has these really interesting aspect patterns. So sorry, just to come back to Ptolemaic aspects, that's like one thing, like a conjunction or a square or an opposition or a trine or a sextile, which are these smaller ones, these 60-degree separations. Those are an aspect, but when aspects form a pattern, as the name suggests, when they form like these connections like that, it's called an aspect pattern. And what's interesting to me about aspect patterns is that I often describe it like a pinball machine. So when something is activated, it pings, 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 pings around to all the other planets that it's in aspect with. So let's say, for example, Mars is at 1 degree of Libra. Let's say you have your sun. Remember, it's always important. I give you a weather forecast, like this is kind of the energy of this full moon. And then you go and look on your chart. Is anything that she spoke about closely touching my chart? Because then it's going to impact me more strongly. So let's say I do this forecast and I say Mars is at 1 degree of Libra. You go to your chart and you go, oh, wow, my sun is at 2 degrees of Libra. That's very close to Mars here. So that means that this whole activated aspect pattern within the sky right now is very much triggering your sun, which is your purpose, the way you shine, and what you're kind of here to do. So that's going to be more pertinent to you. If you have strong aspect patterns in your own chart, then every time, let's say you had this chart and then the sun came to Mars in the sky today, then it would trigger this whole pinball kind of effect in your chart. All of those planets would be triggered. Most strongly would be the Mars, where the planet like the sun came to your Mars and triggered it, but all of those other planets enter the conversation. When the lines are blue, it's usually like, oh, this is exciting. Let's work together. Oh, maybe we can do this. Let's try that. It's harmonious, it's flowing, it's supportive kind of energy. When the planets are in more hard aspects, like a opposition in this case here between Mars and Saturn, which is quite an intense part of this full moon, then that's going to have a more challenging dynamic. I also always say to people that, I quite like the challenging ones because I feel like those are the ones where the most growth happens. It's kind of like when things are too easy, you don't even know. Like if you're a brilliant dancer and people keep coming to you and saying, wow, you're just so graceful on the dance floor. And you're like, well, I don't do anything special. You can dance like that too. And then you watch them dance and they cannot dance like that. And you didn't even realize you were just naturally a good dancer. But that's because you had this harmonious thing that was something you did easily without too much effort. And sometimes it's something that goes somewhat unappreciated by the person who has those lovely aspects, the native of the chart, because it's easy, and you don't appreciate it and maybe don't always utilize it as much as you could. But with the challenging aspects, they push us to grow. And so we have to work at it. There is effort required to make that work. And there is more of a level of appreciation. It's just like when you're young and your parents are buying you everything, and because you're a kid and you don't appreciate where the money for those things came from. And then when you get a job and you earn your first paycheck and you save and prepare to buy something for yourself that you have earned, that there is a different feel to it. You take care of it better, you value it more. And this is what's really, for me, a big part of these aspect patterns. Anyway, I'm going a little off topic here, sorry, but I feel like it's important for us to reframe, me, the queen of the reframe, to reframe challenging aspects into like, ooh, this is the juicy, gritty growth spaces in my life. So this full moon does have some really gritty growth points, and it has this beautiful harmonious dance. So, I mean, for me, that's a win-win. A mystic rectangle here is a trine, sextile, with two oppositions. The two kites we have are both coming off this grand trine in air that I mentioned just now, with a sextile and a sextile here. So the full moon is here at 16 degrees, or we could call it 17 degrees. It's 16 degrees and 59 minutes. So 17 degrees of Aquarius And the sun is therefore exactly opposite that at 16 and 59 or 17 degrees of Leo. So we have this dynamic. Remember, we're still working with the new moon in Leo energy. We're in that Leo lunation cycle, and this is the midpoint of that cycle where the moon has moved all the way around and is now opposite the sun. And there is always a pull of some sort or a push at this point of the month, some kind of fullness, fruition, growth, expansion, exposure. This might actually bring about some serious exposure, to be honest. There's a lot about authenticity in this chart. There's a lot about truth speaking, truth seeking, exposing truth. Pluto is big on exposing truth and bringing up buried secrets. And he is very, very involved in this chart on multiple levels. He's so in that pinball position because he's in the early degrees of, he's part of the grand trine. He's in the early degrees of Aquarius, the same sign as the full moon. So the full moon is illuminating, you might even say, the unconscious aspects of Aquarius, because the sun is the very bright, overt stuff, and the moon brings up the more subliminal, unconscious realms. And so the moon is in Aquarius, bringing up a lot of those Aquarian things. And Aquarius is an air sign. It is a sign that really is concerned about humanity, doing humanitarian things, doing what's right for the planet, thinking about the collective and how to be innovative in order to improve things in the world, improve systems for people. Oftentimes Aquarius are misunderstood as odd or quirky or crazy because they have these ideas that are kind of ahead of their time. They're very futuristic. So here we have a lot of the stuff coming to the surface, this unconscious stuff because Pluto is the god of the underworld. The moon brings up the unconscious. So the two of them in Aquarius together is bringing stuff up to be seen that has previously lain beneath the surface, been somewhat unconscious. And a lot of that is going to be the problems around what's not working. Like, because we would say that Aquarius is power to the people. So if we just look at the governments in almost every country and all the drama that's going on and how people are starting to work in their own little communities, little self-policing communities in some situations, or supporting each other, neighbors, communities, neighborhoods, because they don't feel supported by the higher up, the runners of countries, that sort of thing. That's where Aquarius really spends a lot of time. Like, we are shoulder to shoulder, eyeball to eyeball. You are not better than me. I'm not better than you. We need to work together. Maybe my strengths are different to your strengths. So if I'm really good at gardening and farming, let me make the food because that's sensible. I'm not an accountant, but you're an accountant. So why don't you work on how we're going to buy the seeds, and I'll work on getting the seeds to bear fruit so that we can eat. That's not because you're better than me, just because my skill set is such. And that's very much where Aquarius wants things to be. But that isn't generally how society has been for a lot of time. So we're going to feel this rumbling, like pushing up sort of feeling. And remember, the sun is in a fire sign, and we've got quite a lot happening here in Aries as well. So that's fire. So we might be feeling almost like, you can imagine pushing up from below the surface. It's kind of like has this eruption type of feeling. So you can kind of think of volcano, like if these things keep being pressed down, it's going to burst out. It's a little bit like a boil. At some point, the pressure gets too much and that boil must be popped or will burst on its own. Okay, so that's like the heat, the pressure, the buildup that's happening as these Aquarian things demand to be seen. They refuse to stay buried, to stay unconscious any longer. And then you have the sun in Leo, which is very much like the sovereign, the ruler on the throne, saying, okay, how do I do this better? You know, because the moon might be saying to the ruler, whispering in the ruler's unconscious, in the ruler's dreams. And obviously I'm talking metaphorically here. Although we could see that in places in the world as well. But so metaphorically, how you might feel it is that in your unconscious, in your dream time maybe, or that little voice that's kind of talking to you while you're not paying full attention, while you're sitting at your desk working, but there's this thing like knocking, coming to say, you're not taking care of the needs of everybody in a way that is healthy. And then eventually the ruler thinks, okay, I'm not taking care of things in the way that is healthy for everybody. I've been so focused on this or that, or having power, or how do I do this better? How can I be more authentic? How can I be more benevolent as a ruler? And think of the ruler. You are the ruler. You are the unconscious. You are all of these parts. It is also enacted outside of us within our relationships with other people, or in the world, on the world stage. But always, I like to just bring it back. Where are these parts enacting in me? Because there will be a part of you. If you, for example, are a very strong Aquarian person, you might find the pressure comes with accepting this Leo lesson because you're not very strong with Leo and it's uncomfortable for you, or vice versa, or any of the things we talk about. If you're strong in a certain archetype or two or three of those archetypes, but really not strong in another one, the one that you're not strong in may well be the one where your lessons could be integrated best. Okay, I know this is a little confusing, possibly if you've never done this kind of personal coaching work with your chart before. I am available for readings, so check out my links below if you feel called to drop in more deeply to this version for you, because I am talking about this full moon. I'm not talking about your chart specifically, and that's always where you really integrate it. How do I bring this into my own lived experience? Because we're all individual, even though we're all part of the collective, which is also Leo. I am individual. Aquarius, we are all one. We are all, what happens to you happens to me. What I think about impacts you. What I do impacts you. What you do impacts me, etc. So it is part of that dynamic that we have to feel into. Okay, so that Pluto really bringing up these kinds of questions, but he's working well with two other powerful dynamics. Mars is saying yes in Libra, the sign of balance and justice and fairness and relationships. Also air, also relational. Air is always relational. The air signs are the peoply signs. So here we have Aquarius, Mars in Libra saying, I need to do something that balances out the status quo in these relationships, because it's top heavy on this side, and on that side I'm the dictator, and on that side so and so's the dictator. And actually, I don't want dictators. We need to be fair and organized and reasonable and get things done. So Mars is the doing planet. He's part of that. And Pluto and he are in a good harmonious trine in this new full moon. So Pluto is saying, yes, Mars, let me bring this up for you. Now, what are you going to do about it? And Mars is sitting there deliberating like a little chess on a chessboard and trying to figure out how to make this better. And the other part of the grand trine is Uranus newly in Gemini at 1 degree and 8 minutes here. And so this is still a new energy that we're starting to just kind of maybe begin to understand what that's going to bring out. And Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. He is very much about paradigm shifts. I need people to be able to see this. And it's almost like he has to shake us sometimes because we don't see it. So that's why he's also like associated with lightning bolts and shocks. Like, quite frankly, 1 minute you're walking along thinking this, something happens and it's like you wake up and you go, what? Oh my gosh, that is completely unreasonable and unfair. And I'm using words like that because that's kind of what the air is, very thinky. Air wants to think about things. It wants to be reasonable, logical. So this is what's happening here, these higher understandings that we are really opening and blasting open our mind. How do I be more honest? How do I be more authentic? How do I express voice expression? And also, I mean, that might be that you decide to get a tattoo, or that you completely change your outfit or your hairstyle. Expression is not just verbal, but how do I speak up for what I believe is true? How do I seek truth, speak truth, be more honest, open, sovereign, authentic, brave in saying what needs to be said? So this is a very, very big and powerful and positive part of this full moon. And then the little extra add-ons with these kites would be Saturn is also saying, yes, do the work to make this real, to bring this into like material concrete, and Neptune, sorry, Saturn and Neptune are both at 1 degree here. So both of them, Neptune's like, yes, keep dreaming bigger, fight for what you believe in, be a warrior of light. And Saturn is saying, do the work, strategize over these things, let's do it, like really supportive of the grand trine in air. And then on this side, we have Mercury, who is retrograde, also part of his own little kite on this side. So in Leo, so in the same sign as the sun, just as we have Pluto in the same sign as the moon, but Mercury's retrograde. So it's very much like I've been ruling the kingdom like this. I've been doing things in this way. I've been assuming things in that direction. I think I might be off track. I think I might be doing it wrong. And so that's the benefit of the Mercury retrograde at this point, is this reflective quality of our mind and thinking about things in a way that we wouldn't normally. Mercury's very fast. He's constantly moving from one thing to the next thing. It's busy, busy, busy like a Gemini. And when he goes retrograde, the gift of that is, is that true? I wonder, coming back to truth, I wonder if I have been doing it right. It gives you a chance to pause and reflect, when generally, because Mercury's so fast, we just whiz through things and forget sometimes, especially if you are very mercurial, which you will be if you have strong Gemini, strong Virgo. Okay, let me think about that again. It's giving us that. So I feel like that's really positive. Where the bigger challenges hit in this chart is this Mars opposing Saturn, Neptune. That's uncomfortable because Mars is like the toddler who wants to just go, 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 go. He's got this energy, he's got this enthusiasm, and wants to go get what he wants to go get. He wants to eat what he wants to eat. And then Saturn is Father Time, Kronos. He's going to hold you back. Then you've got the unboundaried. So Saturn's all about boundaries. And then you've got the unboundaried Neptune. And we've spoken a lot about their dynamic of working together and dancing together as very uncomfortable bedfellows, Neptune and Saturn. And they will be continuing this dance for some time. They will step together into Aries in February next year. And then slowly Saturn will start to get ahead of Neptune. But it takes a while because they're slow-moving planets, right? So they're doing this irritating dance where one is saying stronger boundaries and one is saying no boundaries, and then it's constant. So they're already in an uncomfortable aspect of a conjunction, fighting on their own little side there. And now they're both trying to give this naughty toddler. It's like parents that are on a completely different page trying to parent their toddler. And Saturn is putting Mars on a harness and saying, hold on, buddy. You're not going anywhere that fast. And Neptune is saying, go and do whatever you want. And if you fall, that's how you learn. Just explore your world. And Saturn's going, that's not happening. And so the two of them just don't agree. So in the end, it's also causing a little more confusion for Mars because he doesn't know which parent to listen to. And he's in this dual sign of Libra, which is the scale. So he's like, so this way then. So this way then. I mean, I remember when my kids were little, and if Mom said one thing and Dad said the other, the kids would all like look at me because I was the more consistent parent. So it would be like, is that okay? Dad said that, is that okay? So again, you might think, who is stronger in your chart of these two parenty energies, Neptune or Saturn? If you're very Saturnian, then toddler Mars is probably looking to Saturn going, is that okay? Can I do that? And if Neptune is very strong in your chart, you might look to Neptune and say, is that okay? This is another little way you could bring it into recognizing maybe how it plays out in your chart. But again, these things can be difficult if you haven't worked with your own astrology chart for a while to start to understand how to embody the astrology. And then the other thing, besides this strong opposition, which is pretty intense, both at 1 degree, you can see, sorry, I've got a tickle now, is that you have this mystic, when the lines are thicker, you can see some of them are thinner and some of them are thicker. It just means that the planets are in closer orb. So the opposition is stronger because this is at 1 degree and 28 minutes. And here we have 1 degree and 19 and 1 degree and 51 versus this opposition with Mercury and Pluto. We have 4 degrees, 28, but he is moving backwards, and 2 degrees 14. So it is getting tighter at this point. But although I think Mercury stations at this degree. So I don't think he's going to get too much further. I can't remember the stationing degree, but I think he's, well, yes, because he stations direct the next day. Yes. So he's basically pretty much finishing. It's the tail end of his retrograde at this point, because he stations, or 2 days later, on the 11th, he stations direct. So that is not as strong, but it's still very pertinent. And again, Pluto is forcing Mercury versus Pluto is supporting Mars in bringing things to the surface and doing things differently. Pluto is forcing Mercury, slow down, think about it. He's not messing about when it's in opposition, okay? And then we also, of course, have this opposition with the moon and sun, because that's what a full moon is. But this opposition between Mercury and Pluto, and this opposition between Mars, Saturn, Neptune, are tying into a mystic rectangle with a trine between Saturn, Neptune, and Mercury. So they are supporting each other. So Saturn, Neptune, where they are pulling on Mars and being challenging parents, the way that they're currently parenting, you can think of them the same parents to a different child, for example, to a different sibling. And Mercury is the very mental, busy sibling who's slowing down in his retrograde. And Saturn saying, good job, Mercury. Isn't it better when you just take a moment to really think about things? And Neptune saying, well, maybe we can tell a story while you're relaxing and while you're not racing around. Let's go and sit and read a story. So they're both kind of want to do it differently, but they are, again, they're parenting in a positive flowing way versus the pull like that they have on Mars. So you can see that Mars is being challenged by these two, but supported by Pluto, and Mercury is being challenged by Pluto and supported by these two. And you can see that's all tying in. And then the sextiles are that those two siblings, Mars and Mercury, are getting on with each other. They're like, okay, so mom and dad are being like this to you and like this to me, but, you know, as long as we've got each other's back, they're a little erratic, you know. Yeah, I seem to be mom's favorite of the week this week, and you seem to be, but you might be next week. So as long as we can keep backing each other, it's fine if they're erratic, okay? Because those siblings are getting on. And then the other point here is almost maybe we could look at Pluto as the grandfather. If we looked at Saturn, Neptune in my little ever evolving metaphor, we could look at Saturn and Neptune as the parents, and we could look at Pluto as the grandfather. And he's supporting the parents, even though they're having a challenging time agreeing with one another, and they're both parenting quite differently. And in a challenge, they're having a challenge with their one child, and they're supporting their other child. And Pluto is actually redressing the balance. He's like, well, I'm going to push the child you're not pushing right now, and I'm going to support the child you're not supporting right now, and that'll balance things out a little bit. So yeah, it's quite nice. And then the two planets I just want to pull in that I didn't, okay, first of all, wait, Chiron has just gone retrograde. That's also very pertinent here in Aries as well. So still a lot of Aries vibes. And we have this beautiful, not quite perfect conjunction, but definitely conjunction. And I know conjunctions are generally, as I said, more of a challenging aspect, but I do find that it does depend the planets with the conjunction. So these are the two benefics, Venus and Jupiter coming together in Cancer, and that is actually really lovely. And Jupiter is in his happy place in Cancer. He really likes being there, so he can really give like generous gifts even more. And the sign of Cancer is about self-nurturance and mothering. So we bring in the younger woman energy with Venus and the mothering energy. So if we think maiden, mother, crone type of energy, the triple goddess energy, we bring in the younger woman with Venus, we bring in the nurturance with Cancer, and then Jupiter's like, let's work on this, let's hold space for this deep self-love and self-care, while there's this crazy pinball machine of support and pull and push and challenge and growth and greatness going around at this full moon. But I think if I had to, very much my theme for the new moon has been follow the guidance of your heart. And I think that moving into the full moon, it would be maybe follow the guidance of your heart and express the truth from your heart and how to live a more authentic life. So, oh, that's gotten quite long. I'm going to stop sharing now. And yeah, turned into a bit of extra other teaching stuff at the beginning. But hopefully that helps you to keep coming back to your own chart and looking at how things impact you. Look for your red lines, look for your blue lines, look for aspect patterns. Start to get curious about what's being activated in your chart now. Okay, thank you for watching. Thank you for all the likes, shares, follows, and subscribes. I look forward to seeing you again soon.